Hey everybody, welcome to another episode. I'm Matt.
I'm Mandy.
And this is another episode. Thank you guys so much for joining us again as we dip back into the movies that shaped our childhood. And today, Mandy, what are we talking about?
Today we are talking about the Michael Bay classic, I guess you would say. 1995 Bad Boys.
It was his first at bat, so yeah.
It was, yeah.
It was 1995 Bad Boys. And of course, we always ask everyone who's either watching or listening in, if you've never found a reason to watch this movie, please stop what you're doing right now. Go find it on Netflix. It's actually streaming out there on Netflix right now. And then you can come back and join us for the conversation. So we'll wait for you to go do that. And you're back. All right. Thanks for pausing and joining us again. Now you won't be lost on this, 25-year-old movie?
Right.
That's pretty exciting.
Yeah, that is crazy. I had no idea that it was that old.
And of course, we don't like to talk about these movies alone, me and Mandy, because we don't really care what each other think anymore. We have a good idea, kind of, and so we got to bring in another party, someone to spice things up a bit. So we are very excited. Even in the mess of this COVID madness, we've reverted to Zoom meetings, which means we can get people from far away. We're very lucky to have Toledo area comedian Mr. Keith Bergman with us.
Hey, everybody.
Pause for applause.
I know, right? Welcome.
Welcome, Keith. Thanks so much for thanks for joining us on the show. And this is going to be pushing real close to our 100th episode.
Mm-hmm.
So
nice.
The upper 90s at this point. So pretty excited about that.
I should have brought confetti and been like,
we were going to do something fancy for the 100th, but I just can't imagine what it could even be during this time of sadness. So, yeah. But Keith, we made you watch this movie. So we always ask everyone, how long had it been since you watched the movie before we made you watch it for the podcast?
I had never watched it in its entirety.
Okay. All right.
So and I know that's one of those, I have a really spotty movie literacy.
Sure.
Like I didn't have a TV for a long time, and some of that was very like 90s hipster. I don't have a television.
oh my gosh, yeah.
I don't like to admit that.
No,
but
I know so many people how old are you, if you don't mind my asking?
I'm in my like mid to late 40s.
Mid 40s?
So, yeah, this was my 1995 was like my prime I don't own a bed frame years.
Yeah, I have friends that are in like their mid 40s that I try to talk about all the movies that we have on here, and they're like, I don't even think I owned a TV when that came out, and I'm like, oh, you're killing me.
Yeah, I missed like anything that everyone had on VHS. I probably missed.
Okay.
And then like years later, I've been like, now I have like this weird nostalgia for VHS tapes. Nice. And I have a whole shelf of them that for no reason whatsoever. But it's like now, it was a thing where they were, they didn't clog up my house when they should have. So now I have to take them around.
You're the reason why they're still on the shelves at Goodwill.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
Someone's got to be buying them.
They're like, oh, Bullworth, I needed to watch this.
Oh, we were just talking about having that, about doing that movie. Yes, it was a big one for us.
I own it on VHS, and I still haven't watched it.
Nice.
I'll tell you what, I'll come back. We'll do another episode.
There you go.
Oh, that'd be amazing.
So if we had given you the reins on this and we had said you pick a movie then that you would say, shaped you as a person, whether it was as a child or even later on when you started watching TV like regular people, what would you have said was a movie that shaped you as a person?
I've always been way more into comedy and science fiction.
Okay.
Like action movies never really did it for me. And they always seemed really, even the ones that are like the originators of the cliches always felt really cliched to me.
Sure.
And, probably because I watch a lot of them way after the fact.
Yep.
So I agree.
If
I had to watch this, maybe if you'd never seen any of the Lethal Weapon movies and you watched Lethal Weapon 1 now, you'd be like, this is corny as hell.
Yeah.
But, at the time, and so it's kind of a thing where, I was always like I grew up with like, obviously like Star Wars movies and Mel Brooks movies and Airplane and those kind of things. And those were really way more influential to me than like action cop movies and stuff. And
for sure.
So it was, you know, it was good. It's one of those things. It's good for me to see it and catch up on it, but it definitely wasn't something that I was into in my younger days.
For sure, yeah. I would have to say I'm exactly the same way. This is not my forte. Like, I'm not into action films at all, and these are the types of action films that sort of breach that for me. Like that can sort of get me into it a little bit. Like this movie and like True Lies, for instance, and ones that are very, you know, they have a comedy bent to them.
Yeah, like Beverly Hills Cop.
Yeah, things like that. I'm
like
not like
that, yeah.
your hardcore like action flick, like anything else Michael Bay, just explosions and nonsense. Like I'm not into any of that. But it's movies like this that kind of snuck in here and there. And that's why this one is on our list for me, is because this was one that I did watch quite often. This was definitely one that was taped off of like Cinemax when I was a kid, and we had the blank VHS tape with the little white label on the side, you know?
Oh man.
Oh my God. Same. That is so the same for me. And I feel like this came on all the time. Like if you had Cinemax and HBO, it was on constantly. Matt, when was the last time you watched it before you watched it for this?
It's got to have been 15 or more years since I saw this.
Okay.
Maybe even I don't know. Yeah, it's been a long time. So.
Well, I mean, just because the new one was coming out, I did rewatch this one only about halfway through because I have a kid, but
sure.
Like maybe 6 months ago. But my sister and I watched this one, and then when the second one came out, we were old enough to see it in the theater. And I freaking love the second one so much. I can't wait to watch the third one. I haven't seen it. So whenever I get a chance to do that.
All right. So what we generally do is we can kick this off with like a clip here. So we're going to just go ahead and meet Marcus and Mike, which are Will Smith and Martin Lawrence. So here we go.
Hey, look, where's your cup holders?
I don't have one.
You mean you don't have one? $80,000 for this car and you ain't got no damn cup holder?
It's $105,000, and this happens to be one of the fastest production cars on the planet. 0 to 60 in 4 seconds, sweetie. This is a limited edition.
Yeah.
Damn right it's limited. No cup holder, no back seat, just a shiny dick with 2 chairs in it. Because we the balls just dragging the fuck along.
I like it. Yeah.
So awesome. Actually, that scene was filmed post-production because they didn't like how they were introducing the characters and they wanted it to be funnier.
Right.
Yeah, but because there's so much cussing in that scene, Jerry Bruckheimer, Michael Bay. Jerry Bruckheimer produced this, but Michael Bay edited all of the cuss words out so that he could send his mom a copy.
Fun.
So, I just thought that was kind of cute.
Yeah.
But yeah, they totally did it post-production and by the way, the whole script they pretty much threw out.
Yeah.
The script was total crap. They and Michael Bay was like, okay, you guys just basically improvise everything. Wow. And they did. They improvised so much stuff, including the clerk that is like, freeze, mother bitches.
Yeah.
And like they're like, you freeze, bitch. Like all of that was improvised. Most of Tay Leone's lines were improvised.
How much is that? $14.25. Damn. You know what? I must have left my wallet in there. Freeze, mother bitches! Don't you move.
Pure 1995 right here.
How is that not everybody's ringtone for like the first 3 years of cell phones?
Right.
Well, and that guy plays a store clerk in Crash too, the movie Crash. He's the one that ends up almost shooting the little girl. I don't know if you've spoiler alert.
Yeah.
He's the store owner that gets robbed over and over again. So basically this guy was typecast as like an Arabic.
He was too good. He was too good at improv.
Yeah,
no one has ever said that about anyone before.
You find a lane and you stick in it, man.
Yeah, exactly.
What's up?
I have to say I love that opening. As I definitely have some complaints I will air about the movie, but
for sure.
That opening pre-credits scene with the car and the dick with the 2 balls, that's like just a great scene of 2 characters. That's a great establishing shot.
Yeah. It's pure banter between the 2. It gives us an idea of who each person is. Clearly, one of them. I mean, they're just opposites. One of them is a trust fund baby who's got everything given to him, and the other one is just trying to find some bit of joy in his life. not having sex at home with his wife, so he can't. He's got to have one vice, and that was it. And now the other guy's got fries in the bottom of his Porsche or whatever the hell that was. I don't know what it was, but
right. And even like kind of knowing that what they were going to do when the two guys tried to carjack him, like you saw that coming, but it still was just like, it was satisfying. It was
yeah.
Oh yeah. By the
Mandy,
way, one of the carjackers, I'll have to look his
I was
name
just about
up.
to ask you, do you know where that guy was from? Because I recognize him from Waterworld.
I loved him. Oh, okay. Well, that's funny because I didn't recognize him from that. I recognized him from Life, or one of them. It might have been the other guy.
The other guy, yeah. Yep, you're talking about the big guy.
He's the one that's like,
was that LaBelle Crawford?
I don't think that's his
The big
name.
dude?
Yeah, I don't remember.
He went by Bear. I know that, and he died in 2006. It's Michael
Oh, definitely
Telefero.
not.
But he's like, he's the one that's like, you gonna eat your cornbread in Life.
Okay.
And he died in 2006 of a stroke, and he was in a couple.
Right.
The Replacements. He was in that.
Okay.
So yeah.
Yeah, but the other guy is from Waterworld. He's the guy who wants the paper and tries to take the woman off of his weird rig when he's all like, "Where'd you find paper? Give me your paper." That guy, you know. Paper has become currency in the Waterworld.
Yeah.
So we better get used to it. It's going to happen here.
Right?
I'm telling you.
I mean, for real.
There were a few people that snuck into this movie that were kind of half-assed, like cameos or whatever. Maybe
Yes.
Did you recognize anyone else that was kind of a weird?
Well, it's okay. So the IMDb of this movie is completely jacked. Like
Okay.
Will Smith. I almost said Will Ferrell. Will Smith and Martin Lawrence.
That would have been an incredibly different movie.
So weird. Okay. Yes, I did.
No, you know
Dana Carvey?
right?
Yes,
Yeah,
Dana Carvey and
Lovitz.
John Lovitz? Yes.
Wait,
Okay.
tell me these things. What's happening?
Okay, so the original, like this script was originally written for Dana Carvey and John Lovitz, which would have been a completely different movie. It would have been totally crazy.
That's crazy. You know the writer of this movie? Did you look him up at all? George Gallo?
It's an SNL writer, yeah.
Well, it's George Gallo, and he wrote Trapped in Paradise with John Lovitz and Dana Carvey.
Yes.
And also, did you happen to notice Vic Manny is his name, is in this movie, and he's the guy who, the Mitsuchi brothers.
Yes. And he's the one that says like the blue-eyed calls her a blue-eyed bitch or whatever.
Oh, I have that clip.
It's like the worst line ever in the movie.
But I figured if I was going to feature one of the Mitsuchi brothers from Trapped in Paradise, it would be that clip here.
What, you got an itch? I'd love to scratch it.
Scratch this, okay?
I'd scratch whatever you want me to, you blue-eyed bitch.
Did you go to college?
Did you go to college?
I know, it's so great. So great. Okay, so sorry, I had to pull it up on my notes. But the producer Don Simpson, he arranged for a trip of Dana Carvey and John Lovitz to come to Las Vegas and like do some pre-work. And apparently Dana Carvey was just completely outraged by how Don Simpson acted, and he was like, "I'm not doing a movie with this guy." So
Weird.
yeah, and then they ended up taking the rights. It was like a Disney originally, I know, right?
Whoa.
And then they sold it to Columbia. So can you imagine? This was probably gonna be like some fun-loving comedy,
Yeah, like a real hokey sort of buddy cop. Yeah.
I mean, I can kind of see the roles. Like if you think about 90s John Lovitz as like a sleazy, play like a Leisure Suit Larry dude.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And Dana Carvey is the henpecked, oh, my wife won't have sex,
I could.
Yeah,
I would watch it for sure.
John Lovitz could definitely not have been considered some kind of Playboy womanizer, though.
No, it would have been. It would have been way more like just a skeevy, he would have been. There would have been some roofie jokes that didn't age well.
For sure. Yeah, there would have been women involved, but he would have paid for all of them. I guess.
Yeah, it would have been. A lot of
Sophisticated mama. Yeah. Oh, so great.
All right.
I love the idea too of somebody in the 90s in a boardroom just going all right, think about it. We put Dana Carvey in a gym for 6 months. We get him some abs. Ladies man action star. It's gonna happen.
Fresh off
awesome.
Fresh off a clean slate or whatever. Or it had to be right after Trapped in Paradise, right? Like that must have been where this movie fell in George Gallo's repertoire.
Yeah. I think so, because I think Trapped in Paradise was maybe 98.
P.S. If you are listening to this and have not seen Trapped in Paradise, go find it and watch it. It's the greatest movie of all time.
It's a really good Christmas movie.
Had
for sure.
this from that opening intro scene too, and I just thought it was funny because we're all comedians.
Now let's hear one of those jokes, bitch.
I just thought I could find some point to play that. But yeah, haven't we all heard that before?
Oh my gosh,
in
that's
slightly
so funny.
nicer terms. What do you? Okay, here's a question. What do you do when someone asks you to tell them a joke?
Oh God.
Standard. You have a standard response?
I always just try to laugh it off, and I tell them I'm off the clock.
There you go. All right.
Because that way, like that, that in itself is like, haha, I'm off the clock, but also like, hey, don't ask me to work.
For sure. Yeah, you got to pay for this nonsense. Yeah. Yeah, and whenever it's with like people I do not ever tell anyone. I never tell anybody like outside of my circle of like comedian friends that I do comedy, because
Right.
when they find out, none of my jokes would translate into like a 2-second joke. Like I don't do one-liners at all, so it'd have to
Right.
be like a whole story. It just wouldn't work at all, and I hate it every time someone asks. So.
Yeah, I've run it. Everybody in my life has found out very like reluctantly on my part for that
Yeah.
reason. Like when it came up any year it would come up with like my kids' teachers at school, or somebody was just like the whole conversation all over again. But there've been some weird moments, like when I went in the hospital in 2013 when my daughter was in kindergarten, or no, she was in preschool,
Mm-hmm.
and I was in the hospital. I couldn't see her for 2 weeks because it was flu season, and they actually had done kind of a little mini version of what we're doing now.
For sure. Yeah. You've had
So
some
I'm in
practice.
the ICU and I can't see her. So at preschool, they were playing my YouTube clips, which were just profane and R-rated as hell.
For sure.
But they were playing them so she could hear my voice at school,
Aw.
which was heartwarming. But then also, I was like 2 years into comedy, and the jokes, I'm sure, were like, now I would be like, no, don't play those.
Right. Yeah. It just causes more damage. Yeah.
Right.
That is awesome.
Yeah,
Did you
ask you?
in therapy talking about some guy they don't remember?
How long have you been doing comedy, Keith?
I went to it's for the most part since 2010.
Okay.
There was a brief little thing like in 2002 or so. I tried doing it for like 6 months, and I got like a couple paid gigs way too early. Should not have.
For sure.
Like fluke. One of those where you have a really good open mic set, and someone's like, "Hey, come do this thing you're not ready for," and you're like, "Hell yeah!" And then you go and just get humiliated.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
But I did about 6 months of that years and years ago, and then was like, well, that's enough of that. And then like 2010 or so, I started going to mics again, and that was and then it was just nonstop until everything stopped.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So.
All right.
Great.
Do you guys have any like outstanding moments in the movie that you thought were particularly good or particularly bad? This is a great time if you want to air those grievances.
Yes. I absolutely loved the part when JoJo is being interrogated the second time, and Martin Lawrence is like, "Tell him, JoJo!" Like,
it's got to be more, JoJo. You got to.
It's got to be more. And he's like, "Oh wait, no, it's just one guy."
What's up, Joe? I'm gonna tell you like this. You splatter his ass, he's no good to us. Fuck that. Fuck that. I'm not going down over this shit. I'm not going down for you killing JoJo the Time Man. Okay?
This might be the most profanity-ridden clip episode we've ever done.
I don't know everything about everything. I know a little bit about a little bit.
A little bit about a little bit.
It's 3 guys. All right? They got a laboratory. No, it's 2 guys.
It's
One
2
guy
guys.
died on a plane crash last year. Fucked up, but no,
there needs to be more.
no. It's one guy, really. It's only one guy, really. This guy's been
don't fuck with
one
me,
main
JoJo.
guy. No, this.
Yeah. So yeah.
Oh, so good. And
Trying to get one step ahead of the movie. Like I honestly, when they did all that, and then dude was like, "I'll go get you his address." I thought it was leading up to another like they were gonna chase him. Like he was gonna like, "I'm gonna go get you his address," and then he was just gonna haul ass.
For sure.
And they were gonna have to run shirtless around for another 5 minutes.
Yeah.
right, with their shirts open, shooting
Yeah.
guns. Yeah,
Real
yeah,
slow-mo,
exactly.
just-
Explosions in the background for no reason. Just people
Like
throwing
weird-
barrels of ether out of it. Yeah.
You
He's
forgot your
running past the
boarding
refinery.
pass. Yeah, exactly. I love that part so much. It reminded me of what's the movie with him and Tim Robbins?
Nothing to Lose.
Yes.
I love that movie.
Yes, when he's like, "Please don't kill me, Freaky Jason."
Freaky Jason.
Like that's what that reminded me of. I thought it was fantastic. So yeah.
The spider on your head.
That's definitely like that's where you want Martin Lawrence in a movie when he can just go off like that. And
for sure.
That's when he's like at his best.
Yeah, I don't actually enjoy Will Smith's performance in this movie at all. Like without Martin Lawrence in this, it would have been just a dud of a movie because he does it well, I suppose, the suave sort of ladies man type, but there's no substance to it and it doesn't provide anything for the story, you know? It requires that the witness that they find pursue him, and they've veered off of that altogether. Like they didn't even give that to her as a thing to play off of. So it's all watching Martin Lawrence be Martin Lawrence, which was great.
Yes.
I enjoyed.
Yeah, I thought her part was horrible.
Oh my gosh!
And it was such an I Love Lucy. Like he thinks you're you and you're him, and it was like such a goofy sitcom thing to do.
Yes,
in the middle of a.
That's where the Dana Carvey and John Lovitz would have come in real handy there. That was
right.
Oh my gosh!
Because if you think about it, the explosions are not on the actors. That can be, there's really that one scene where the two do, or like the one big chase where he's trying to chase the car while they're driving away right after they grab the girl from the lobby of the apartment.
Yeah,
and that's where you get all the slow-mo shots of Will Smith running shirtless. And you get the big shot where they're like collapsed on the pavement and the camera pans around them in a circle. It's a little homoerotic almost.
And then
they're like very
the look up to you get that look up to the sky scene and everything.
Yeah.
I loved it, but that's just me.
but like if you took that out, there's a surprisingly small amount of like actual fight scenes or tough guy stuff in the movie. Like that you can see, like especially if you hear about like you think about other actors doing those parts, like that could have been, there wasn't a ton of like those two having to be real burly and beat the shit out of people.
Right.
Well, it's funny that you say that because Will Smith was supposed to be running shirtless and he refused and he said, "I will only run with my shirt open." And I think it's because he's kind of scrawny, even though I think that he probably has like scrawny shoulders and stuff. Because if you think about it, you probably haven't seen him shirtless that much, maybe like Independence Day or something like that. But I also thought Taleone was horrible at acting in this movie.
No bueno. She was
so
good.
bad. But I do love her, and she did get better in her like upcoming roles. Like she was in Spanglish. Ghost Town is a freaking fantastic movie if you haven't seen it. It's got who's the British comedian that totally bombed at the Academy Awards or whatever when he was trying to
Ricky
be
Gervais.
Yes, who I love. But he ended so it's him and her are the main characters. Super good. She's just been like Family Man. She's been in a ton of really good roles, and they're a lot more serious. She was in A League of
Their Own.
She was, yes.
She was first base she played first base for Racine.
Yes. Oh my gosh, it's so funny.
She was good in. It's funny. All of my big movie knowledge comes from a very short time period that I worked at a Blockbuster.
Nice. Oh, awesome! My dream job.
Yeah.
One of the stupidest things in the world was the year that Deep Impact and Armageddon came out, and Deep Impact got the shaft, as far as I'm concerned, because it's a way better movie.
Yeah. Speaking of Deep
we
Impact,
lost Keith.
All right, let me.
That's what you get.
That was the driving mode. Hold on.
That was the deepest
driving mode. That's what you get for shit talking Armageddon.
No, the best. Okay, so if you guys aren't watching,
miss a thing.
If you guys are you're only listening, you're not watching. Oh, we just got Keith back.
There we are. All right, I'm back.
I'm gonna miss a thing. That was like the greatest ever. It was almost like you did that on purpose, like you had it planned out.
I just checked it off the list. There you go. A great gag for this week's episode.
P.S. I saw Armageddon like 13 times in the theater. So, but I was only like.
I'm not even saying it's a bad movie. I just think Deep Impact was a way better like ensemble. All the interconnected. Yes. Elijah Wood is like very like baby Elijah Wood's in that movie. So young.
Very. That's a Keanu Reeves movie. Am I wrong?
Deep Impact? No.
No.
Who's like the main dude in Deep Impact?
Isn't there Morgan Freeman in that movie?
He's the president.
Okay.
Go figure.
All right.
It's fine. I was just.
Is it Sam Rockwell? No. Is it?
Deep Impact. Let's
Sam
see what we
Rockwell?
got here. Deep Impact Wikipedia shows the cast as Robert Duvall, Leone, Elijah Wood, Vanessa Redgrave, Maximilian Schell, and then just a bunch of other people we don't know. So
Gotcha.
Robert Duvall, I guess, was the Captain Spurgeon.
I'm trying to think. There was like a. Maybe I'm thinking of a different. Maybe James Cromwell. Is James Cromwell in there?
He sure is. Yeah.
I think he's the dad. He's Elijah Wood's girlfriend's dad, and they end up they have like a really young sibling that they end up handing off to the kids, and they have to race out of the traffic jam to like on a dirt bike to get up onto a mountain because there's going to be a tidal wave.
John Favreau.
It's a disaster. That's like, as much as I'm not into like cop action movies, disaster movies. I've watched Day After Tomorrow like 25 times.
Oh my gosh, yes, that is such a great movie. Well, except for the wolves. When the wolves finally come out, and that I'm like really like they just had to like go through all this other shit, and now there's like wild wolves in the city. Like that's just lame. But they had to.
I was going to ask you guys then. Speaking of disaster movies, what's your favorite Will Smith movie, if you had to pick one? Are you steeped in the catalog of Mr. Smith?
I've definitely missed some, so
sure.
I don't know. Like, you go first. Yeah,
no, I was just gonna say Michael Imperioli is the guy who gets interrogated by JoJo, and he's been in a shitload of movies. I knew I'd seen him from somewhere, but I looked
him up. Yeah. And also Joe Pantoliano was in this, and he was in Goonies.
Goonies. Yeah.
With hair. He has hair still.
I know. And he was so fantastic. And I would say that he's probably my favorite character. And it comes because he is a bigger character in the second movie too. And he's like trying to all this like meditation and stuff, and he's fantastic. So, but I thought he did a really good job in this movie as well.
Yeah. Did you have
an internal affairs subplot was so like, that was one thing I didn't get at all. Like,
so stupid.
Marge Helden, they just wasted her in this movie. Like, she showed up like 3 times and yelled at everybody.
Right.
And then that was it.
Like, it was to add some sort of extra pressure on the rest of this thing, but like, why? There was no need for this. People were dying, and $1 trillion worth of heroin was stolen. Like, the stakes are pretty high at that point. We don't need
totally
corporate coming down on them or whatever.
But, by the way, my favorite Will Smith movie is Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Okay.
Like, I mean, I liked like the Men in Blacks. I could watch Wild Wild West over and over again. I do,
which is like renowned as his like worst movie of all time.
Yeah,
I know
that movie really tanked. But like, I remember, I don't know if I watched all of it or just watched it in pieces late at night when it was, because that was another one for like 3 or 4 years that was just on.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
I'm not sure if that was one of the Comedy Central. Was it? They had like Comedy Central for, I haven't had cable for a while, but there was like that period of time where for like a year or two, Comedy Central would get a movie and get their claws in it, and it was just the movie they showed after the Daily Show all the time.
I'm sure it was just the cheap movie, right? I mean, like,
it was
that movie
whatever,
tanked so hard that they were willing to get nickels on the dollar for it. So who cares?
I mean, probably Independence Day is my favorite, is like my all-time, but that's not really a Will Smith movie.
Sure.
I don't know. I know he did some real shitbag movies that I hated that I know you liked.
I really enjoyed I Am Legend. I really thought that was a good movie.
That was good. What about like romantic? What about like Hitch? Will Smith.
Oh yes, I loved Hitch.
There you go.
My wife just watched that, and I don't know.
That's probably the best response. I don't know.
I loved it when he gets like all his lips are all swollen because he gets like that shellfish allergy and stuff. I thought that was great, and I like Kevin, what's his face, the chubby one that I like.
James.
Yeah, Kevin James.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The chubby one. Yeah, there you go.
So
Paul Blart.
yeah, exactly. So Leone got knocked out by Martin Lawrence's stunt double. She got like uppercutted in the chin and got knocked out, and she woke up in the hospital. And like everyone was like totally freaked out. So that happened. I just thought I'd let you guys know.
Did that happen right away in the filming? Because maybe that's why she's just so fucking bad.
Happened at the table read. They were
then she just was terrible at the movie for the rest of the time. She was just flinching all the time, waiting for an elbow. Yeah.
I don't know. It says
flinching.
Yeah, right. And I think too her character is just not likable. She's a vegetarian, which I mean, not not all vegetarians are bad, but if you're going to preach to people about eating meat,
I need to talk to Detective Mike Lowry.
Mrs. Captain Howard, can I help you?
You can get me Detective Lowry.
Look, this is not another paternity case, is it?
No, it's another murder case, you twerp.
I just keep imagining John Lovitz.
Listen, I've just seen my best friend get murdered. And I'll only talk to Mike Lowry.
That totally makes sense.
Mike Lowry, I have a detective here.
None of your fucking business, all right? Either I talk to Lowry or I'm gonna blow town.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to possibly help catch the killer of my best friend if I can't talk to this one specific guy. Yeah, let's really push the plot
but
along.
the guy that she was with was an ex-cop, so she might think that there's like moles or whatever. I don't know. Just
Did
play
she
devil's
know?
advocate.
Did she know that he was an ex-cop at that time?
I
don't
think
remember.
so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
She says something about it, I think. And then like that part, that whole thing where she goes to the dance, like she goes to the goth club with the gun in her purse, and she's gonna, and she does that. It's like that text. It's like a Lifetime movie of the week, like how to play a traumatized woman. Like, oh, I'm gonna shoot that guy. Like it was just like a shaky voice, and it was just awful.
And then she forgot her whole vigilante justice vibe as soon as she saw the guy. She was like, well, I guess now I'm just in the middle of a gunfight for a plot point for no reason.
Sorry, go ahead.
Do you know so Francine was another, again, subplot to this whole thing, the girlfriend of the ex-cop guy who tried to throw them off the trail by not knowing how to hack into things, I guess.
Yes.
Is she the same woman who is in the movie Angus? Is that Angus's grandpa's new wife?
Yes, it is 100%. She's also, remember, because she played the hooker in the Western movie that had her boobs cut off. That's like the only thing I can remember.
Oh, jeez.
I don't remember that.
It's a Clint
Seems
Eastwood
like you
movie.
would. That seems that's a memorable.
If I had seen that movie, yeah.
I mean, they didn't get cut off, but like she got all cut up because she was, But yes, it is 100%. That's her.
I did not care for the main bad guy there, Fauci or whatever his name is.
Yeah.
Not a fan.
No, I thought he was really good. His name is it's Checky, I think is how you pronounce his first name. There's some accents up in there.
Yeah.
Checky Cario. I don't know. I thought he did okay. I thought that I had seen him in more stuff than what I had. I feel like he's just like the typical villain because.
Is that not the case? Then he doesn't have a filmography.
No, I mean he does, and his filmography is huge, but it's shit that I have never watched. Okay. So I don't know.
Huh. He's Turkish.
Yeah.
Turkish-born French actor.
He's from Turkey. Yeah.
Yeah. Look at that.
Yeah, and one of my favorite characters too that I wanted to give like an honorable mention or whatever was the doorman. Was it Chip? Was that his name?
Oh,
Detective Burnett. How are you?
Yes.
I'm cool. Mr. Lowry, he's not here. He's out.
I know. He said I can use his place tonight.
Shit.
Oh, really? You didn't mention it to me.
I did like this guy. Yeah. This is like the quintessential Bronson Pinchot character. Like
right. I that's another thing where I predicted and I was wrong. I thought he was gonna get shot.
Yeah.
And I thought it was gonna be another one of those, we're gonna avenge him. Like he was gonna try to be the deputy dog and get shot by the bad guys.
Yeah.
And
I at least thought he was going to be like some sort of a thwart to the bad guy. Like he was gonna step in and save the day or something.
Yes, I thought the same thing.
He got freshly deputized, so he's like, hell yeah, I'm a deputy.
Oh, when he said that, for sure, I'm like, yeah, he's dead. He's gonna die. He's gonna die in Will Smith's arms. Will Smith's gonna look up and like,
you my
we need
deputy.
to take these motherfuckers out.
They killed Chet, the doorman.
I was like, no, he's toast. There's no way. But yeah, it would have been a mean thing to do, but I was totally expecting it, and I was wrong. It feels like there were a bunch of there was like 5 characters in this that could have been. And again, maybe they scrapped those parts of the script.
Yeah, it might have had an integral part. They just were like, fuck it, we don't care anymore. Yeah, we've got to move this thing along. This was a 2-hour long fucking movie. Like this was too long of a movie. Already.
Yeah, when I paused it for a bathroom break at one point and was like, an hour and 10 to go? Are you fucking kidding me? What is?
So speaking of an hour and 10 to go, I'm watching the clock here. We're about ready to take our first break, but before we take the break, we do have an activity that we like to do with all of our guests, Keith. So
Okay.
we have an activity that has a theme song that goes with it, and that theme song sounds like this.
Chop this synopsis. Chop this synopsis. Chop this synopsis.
All right. That was provided by Mr. Bob Fredericks. We did that game several times without a theme song, and you know what Bob thought? This needs a theme song. So he provided that for us.
Theme song.
And we've used it ever since. So
Bob's a problem solver.
that's right. We are about to play Chop This Synopsis. And so what that entails for you, Keith, we need from you a 10-word or less synopsis of the film Bad Boys. Okay? You're going to get the break to figure it out. So when we come back from the break, we need from you 10 words or less. So basically we need something that would go on the back of a DVD case or something on the splash screen at Netflix, just something to rope you in, try to make you watch this movie. Whether it's, completely accurate, that's up to you, man. You got 10 words to figure it out. So when we come back from the break, we'll have that from you. But otherwise, we will be right back after these messages.
Jamie, I need you to keep the dogs quiet. I'm recording a commercial for the Elemental podcast. So can you keep them quiet during this recording of my commercial for the Elemental podcast? I mean, I know the dogs bark a whole lot when we actually record the podcast on Mondays and Thursdays and during the Patreon on Saturdays. But during the commercial, we need the recording to be dog bark free. Can you do that for me, Jamie? Can you keep the dogs quiet during the recording of this commercial for the Elemental podcast that people can listen to every Monday and Thursday and the Patreon on Saturday? Can you do that for me, Jamie? Thanks, Jamie. I appreciate it.
Hey, I'm Mike Logan.
I'm Garrett Elzinga.
And this better be good. You know what it is. It's the weekly podcast where Garrett and myself, two professional comedians, review a movie before seeing it and review it again after seeing it. And this is an ad for our podcast.
It is true.
You can find our podcast on all podcasting platforms. Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify. It's
Stitcher.
everywhere. Except for SoundCloud, because fuck SoundCloud.
That's what we used to use, and now we use Anchor. Anchor's fantastic. You guys should check it out.
It's true. If you like movies and you like funny anecdotes, and we also talk about movie news, and we've got witty, great banter, download our podcast now. If you're listening to this podcast, odds are pretty good you'll like our podcast.
It's true. We're incredibly funny, incredibly witty. I love Mike a whole lot. I don't know if he loves me as much as I love him.
So yeah, download our podcast wherever you listen to podcasts, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Thanks.
Hey, I'm Mike Logan.
I'm Garrett Elzinga.
And that was an ad.
Oh, okay. Well, that was clever.
Yeah, well.
Chop this synopsis.
Can't you just see him singing the song in his car by himself,
Yes.
That's what he did. That's where he recorded it. We had a lunch break at work, and he sent us multiple versions of that. And in fact, that's strung together, the multiple versions that he sent along. I just strung them together to make that. So I'm pretty stoked about it. I really like at the end when he brings it home, synopsis. I love it. It's great.
Beautiful.
All right. So it is time for the rousing conclusion of Chop This Synopsis. So Keith, if you would please regale us with your 10-word or less synopsis of Bad Boys.
A free-for-all of clips, quips, and chicks from The Fresh Prince and Martin.
That's awesome. Did you guys watch Martin? Because I watched the shit out of Martin when it was on.
I did watch some of it, yeah, for sure. In fact, I just now realized that these guys were both pretty super popular 90s TV show people, yeah.
I feel like that's where some of that this was really Will Smith's big jump to movies, though, wasn't it?
I think so.
It had to have been pretty goddamn close to it for sure, yeah.
Because he went, because he was still on I think because they said, didn't he make a couple of Bad Boys jokes in Fresh Prince episodes?
Yes, yeah.
He was still doing Fresh Prince.
Yeah, Nicky, he's the mistake basically, which is sad to call him that, but he was the oops baby. He's like, they won't let me watch Bad Boys, and he was like, and then Will Smith says, "What you gonna do?" But,
Wikipedia says his leading man status starts in 1998 with the Gene Hackman film Enemy of the State. So apparently he wasn't considered leading man up until.
This movie was the 11th, the number 11th movie of 1995. So you would think that he would.
He did 6 Degrees of Separation in 93 and then Bad Boys in 95. So he had done one other large role in a film prior to this. So yeah.
And don't forget the video, Parents Just Don't Understand, because come on.
For sure. Yeah.
It's like a masterpiece.
I mean, he was solidified in the zeitgeist as being like an important person just from, you know, his
Ring My Bell, you know, all that stuff.
his music career and his Fresh Prince work. So yeah.
But yeah, but that was such a weird, it was like a weird transition from like teenager, you know, and because he was on, you forget how long, like he was on that show for so long.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't quite like a child star trying to be an adult, but it was kind of in that same vein of like trying to be taken seriously. And I think that's where some of like the shirt thing, maybe when he was running, and there's that whole thing at the end where there was that thing where they said he didn't want to say I love you to one character. Like, dude says I love you, man, to him, but he didn't want to say it, and he like fought with them all day about saying it.
Yeah.
And you know, I can see, but do you think about that? You know, he's probably really, I mean, he's a smart dude. He's probably really conscious of like what that could, you know, where that movie could have put him, or if it was a big flop.
Yeah, for sure. I've heard things about his career being extremely calculated. I don't know how much of it's true, but like he has people in his camp that tell him you need to do X amount of this kind of movie and then switch over to that kind of movie, and then that's what keeps you relevant and tries to keep you on top of things.
Speaking of career decisions,
Mm-hmm.
Arsenio Hall was originally asked to do this movie and he turned it down. And he said it was like the biggest career mistake he ever made.
Oh no.
So, yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
Also, too, the other two leads, which I think would have been a pretty good movie, were considered Eddie Murphy and Wesley Snipes.
Okay.
So
like the two of them together?
Yeah, which I don't know of how that would have worked because they're both kind of like brooding leading men type.
Yeah.
Like, you know?
And I just can't see Wesley Snipes.
That's gonna be like I can't see Wesley Snipes being like, "Come on, honey, I need some quality time."
Right. Yeah.
Oh,
or just cracking a smile at all. I just don't see that being the case. But yeah, maybe. You know.
I do love Wesley Snipes though.
I do want to play. I want to play the clip of what was my favorite part of the movie.
Yeah.
Which is right here.
Hello.
Don't be alarmed, we're Negroes.
Don't be alarmed, we're Negroes.
Too much bass in your voice.
Too much bass.
You got the sound like that. We were wondering if we can borrow some brown sugar.
Nice. That's it.
Martin Lawrence is so just everything that when he's like, oh yeah, you know, I'm Mike Lowry. I come with the thunder. There's a whole lot of going on. He is just amazing. I think he's hilarious. And actually, the movie Life is probably in my top 10 comedies of all time, and he is so amazing in that movie. And just like that, he just is his comedy is so awesome.
Yeah.
One of the things I wanted to mention too is the basketball player John Sally, who used to be on the Pistons team.
The hacker.
Yes.
Yeah.
But he was amazing. Yes. And he's like pointing down. And but the thing is like I thought that was amazing acting. Obviously, he only had a couple of lines.
Sure. Yeah.
But like everything that he said, he did better acting in his 3 lines than Taleone did in this whole movie.
For sure. Absolutely.
I wonder. One of the things I would like the reason that Martin Lawrence and Will Smith, like, I think the reason they look so good in this movie is because they got to improv so much. Like the one scene that really just made me cringe was when the 2 women are walking into the ex-cop's place and they're just laying on that script in that chunk of where she's just laying on the backstory, like
exposition. This is
what
unload exposition.
From me, your roommate who doesn't pay the bills. I guess I'm just like. It was so like just laying on the exposition, and if the whole movie had been like that, they would have been so awful to sit.
Yeah,
but like I wonder if maybe this like the dialogue as it was originally written for those 2 was that bad.
It was.
I would imagine so. Yeah.
I think that Martin and Will had enough like career experience that they were able to. But like Taleone, a lot of the stuff that she did was improv too, and so in a way, you know, she probably did make it better. But
well, I mean, you kind of had to, right? I mean, if everyone around you is improvising their lines, you can't stick to the script, so you just kind of make it up as you go along, I guess. But But
and I do love it. Oh, go ahead. Yeah, sorry.
It's been almost 50 minutes in this podcast. Somebody in this movie is vegan, and no one has said anything about it. So we need to hear from this character. Hold on.
I said vegetarian. I should have said vegan.
What?
That's flesh that you're shoveling into your mouth. You know, that was like a living, breathing creature, you know.
I hate her so much. The worst. Probably hit it.
Baloney. My baloney has a first name.
Well, actually, your bologna has about 30 names, you know, because they take like odd parts from all different ones, you know, like the leftovers, like the hooves, you know, stomach lining, ears, stuff like that, you know, and they put it into this machine and like grind it all up.
Oh, that's really nice.
And then out comes like this sheet, you know, that's like what you're eating now. Okay.
God, she's awful. She's just so
You know what?
melancholy.
Bologna, no.
I mean, I realize her best friend was
How
murdered.
about a
But
pickle? Can I eat the pickle?
There's a lot of salt in it, but yeah, it's fine. I mean, it is a vegetable.
A lot of salt in the pickle.
He dips it in the thing.
dunk. I love it. All right. I just figured it had been far too long since someone mentioned anything about being a vegan. So
I have to say,
1995 too. That wasn't nearly as even acceptable as it is now.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
So I have a cat door in my basement, which I've talked about before, and usually my dog will stick their head through it, but my 5-year-old just stuck her head through it. Apparently her dad, who has to get up at 4:30 or 3:30 in the morning, has already laid down. And she just stuck her head through the door. So when you see me like going, like motioning, like go upstairs, like she's like, her head was literally on the floor, and she's like, okay. She went back up.
Nice.
So do we want to talk about budget?
Yes, we do. But before we do, I wanted to ask real quick. So sometimes a movie will be so poorly written that they mention the title of the movie in the movie.
Yeah.
This one has a bit of a slide to it because of the whole song that was associated with it. But do you guys remember any other movies that you've known that have the title of the movie in the movie that really just takes you out of the whole mess? That's what usually happens for me. Every time it happens, I'm like, God damn it, I don't need this.
Well, I mean, they did it in Hot Tub Time Machine, but it was out. Bad boys,
what you gonna do? And they're just awful. They're the worst. But anyhow, okay. I had to get that one there too.
I feel like I'm put on the spot with this, so I'm just not sure.
Yeah. I don't like it. I don't like it when they mention the name of the movie in the movie. It weirds me out. But okay, well, we were doing ages, right?
Yeah, or budget, whatever you want to do.
Yeah, we also have a theme song for this, provided by the one and only Mr. Stu McAllister. He was guest hosting at the time, and he did it live right on the show. And so I pulled the clip from that, and this is what we get for the box office. Box office theme song. That's it. Box office theme song. There we go. Short and sweet. Stu McAllister.
Thanks, Stu. Stu always fills in when I'm lame and can't do it.
Yeah, he's very famous.
Just awesome.
He's very famous, and go listen to his podcast.
So
Elemento
amazing.
Podcast. All right.
Elemento Podcast. All right. So how much? So unless Keith, were you, in your research, did you see what it cost to make the movie at all?
I didn't look at that, but
no, that's perfect.
That's bad.
Okay.
Okay, so how much do you think it costs to make this movie in 1995?
In 1995, not adjusted for inflation.
No, just
well, this is the budget. So how much do you think the budget was to make this movie? Yep.
Oh, and then I would have to guess that it was like in like 120 to 150, and then they went way over.
Okay.
How'd I do?
Well, hold on. I'm gonna say that this movie probably cost somewhere in the upper like 60 million-ish to make.
Okay.
I know it was a Michael Bay film, but it was early Michael Bay, and he wasn't just blowing cash like crazy. So.
Well, just so you guys know, Michael Bay gave up pretty much most of his salary to make this movie because he had such a low budget. It was $19 million is what he made this movie with.
I guess I have a little more respect for this movie then, yeah.
Yeah, right? Okay.
That barely even covers the ether.
Right.
They probably had to have 2 or 3 ice cream trucks, you know?
Well, and that was the thing. Site. Like there were a lot of scenes that he had to shoot in one day that you would normally take like 4 or 5 days to shoot. So he was really actually very unhappy with the final product, but I still think obviously it was number 11 for the year, so they did pretty good.
Sure.
All right, so how much, Keith? How much do you think it cost, or how much do you think they made?
Up till now.
Yeah, worldwide gross.
Ooh,
and that's just for this movie, not the franchise.
Right. I mean, it's got to be 300 or 400 million.
For them to put that much effort into a sequel, into multiple sequels, you'd think so, yeah.
Because I had heard what I heard about 2, and I this is just from hearsay, from random thought but I didn't look it up. But I remember like one of the reasons that 2 took so long to come out after 1 was that those 2 had gotten to a point and they knew they had leverage, so that there was a ton of like fighting over who was going to get billing and who was going to get more money and a lot of that. So I'm going to say 350 million.
Okay. Matt?
I'm gonna do a little more conservatively. I'm going to say like 200.
It was 142 million.
Okay. All right. That's
Which
still
is
a pretty good showing for a $19 million budget. Yeah.
Right.
And 1995, that is really, really good.
Yeah.
I also looked up the other movies that came out that year. Toy Story 4 was number 1. So
wait,
whatever.
Toy Story. Wait,
Toy Story.
It had been Toy Story 1.
I'm sorry. This is actually funny because everything says 95 except for 2019. Number 1 was 7. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Braveheart. These are all crime movies too. Usual Suspects, The Heat, Casino. Jumanji, that wasn't a crime.
or
Goldeneye,
but you know.
Yeah, Goldeneye, Before Sunrise, and then Copycat, and then this movie. So
okay.
Which 7? I would love to do that movie on here because I watched the shit out of that movie when I was a kid.
All right.
But yeah, but Usual Suspects, Heat, and Casino were all like 4th, 5th, and 6th. So that
I don't necessarily want
to
on the podcast The Usual Suspects. I just want to watch that movie again. It's just whether if that was on, I would probably sit and watch that movie. But
I just think I watched that within the last 6 months. It holds up.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so that's the box office portion of the podcast. All right. Do we want to move on to another game? We're just going to keep doing game after game here.
Yeah.
All right. This one also
works.
This one also has a theme song, and I'm sorry for the theme song ahead of time. This one was my doing. Well, not my doing in the sense I didn't make. There's a theme. You probably have some of these cassette tapes, don't you?
Will you still need me? Will you still feed me when I'm 64?
All right. It's time to
All
play
right.
How Old Are You?
You wrote all those songs.
I did, yeah. It's the greatest.
All right. Well, hopefully we don't get copyright laws.
Yeah.
Whatevs.
I just figured if we talk over most of them, we'll be okay.
Okay. So. Okay. Can you go tell Daddy? Is Daddy in bed? Okay. Go tell him, baby. It's okay.
I wonder how many people are going to isolate that clip of you saying that just for later use.
Go tell Daddy I love you. Shut the door, please. Okay, baby. Go tell Daddy.
Quarantine.
That's the first time this has ever happened.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
That's all right.
So
Keith got so mad earlier he threw his phone. So we're
Right.
kind of stuff's happening.
I know.
People, there were dogs barking in Senate hearings today, so people, I think it's the new normal.
Yeah.
Oh, she was so sweet too. Okay. Okay. How old do you think Tay Leone was when she made this movie?
Oh, man, I'm trying to do it in context, but it's probably not 24.
Okay.
I'm gonna say she was like 28.
She was 29.
Okay.
Oh.
All right.
I know
I'm bad
how.
at that in general in real life.
Right. Yeah.
I'm real bad with guessing age.
I feel like this is strange because, I don't know. When I realized the ages, I was like, "Oh, this is so weird." Okay, how old do you think?
It's bizarre to me how much younger they are making this movie than I am in real life. Like
I thought
so
the
weird.
same thing. And my husband and I watched this movie together. So when I asked him how old he thought everyone was today, he was way off, by the way. So how old do you think Martin was? Martin Lawrence.
26.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say like 30.
He was 30, but
Hey!
see, that's so funny because we watched it as kids.
Yeah.
And don't you think that 30 is young? Like, don't you feel like he would have been older than that?
Oh, for sure now.
Yeah.
But back then I would have imagined, yeah.
Yeah. So Keith, obviously, he's like got like the mindset of, okay, this was 25 years ago, which
Right. I'm sitting here trying to,
which it's still hard to believe that Martin Lawrence is like whatever 25 plus 30, you know, so he's 55. That's still like he's AARP style, so that's crazy.
Right.
I
how
just like
old
to
do you
get the
think?
first one. If once we get the first character, their age, that's sort of my baseline. So like how much older or younger do I think they are than that person? That's
How old do you think Will Smith was?
No, he was more like he was probably like 20s because he's a couple of years younger than Martin, I think. So I would say probably like 27, 28.
Okay.
that's right about where I would have said too. Yeah, somewhere in there.
Yeah, he was 27.
Okay, there you go.
And then
So he was
just
on the
oh, sorry,
so
go
he was
ahead.
on the force for 6 years.
I mean, seriously, I am 36 years old. Like, and I watched this movie as a kid. I just can't. I can't wrap my head around the fact that they were like so fucking young in this movie.
It's weird to me
they were
too.
grown-ups.
Yeah, that they
Yeah.
walk around and they're like, well, I haven't killed anyone today, or like they're just making such a joke out of like just murdering people constantly. It's great.
I just
I still
have
can't afford
one.
Will Smith's apartment. I can't.
Yeah. Okay, so and just for fun, I threw in Joe Pantalone or Pantaleone.
Joey Pants.
Yeah, Joey Pants. Just for fun. How old do you think he was when he made this?
Ooh.
Here's some context for you.
Until then, you are Mike Lowry. You be him. That's what you are. You're him.
Yeah.
You're him. I don't want to hear it. You're him. And you are you. You be you, but not in front of her. You're him. You're you.
Upstairs there.
All right. I'm gonna say he was 40.
Okay. Matt?
That's my guess.
43.
Okay. 44. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh.
There you
Which
go.
that's crazy because he's like almost 60. Like,
Well, no, he'd be
Almost 70.
yeah. He's pushing 70 now.
oh my God, he's almost 70.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Joey
Holy
Pants.
shit.
Look at him go.
Yeah. Look at me with no. I can't.
Well, he
I'm
was-
sorry. I can't do math because my kid keeps coming down here and
He had to be in
asking
like
me to come upstairs. So
he had to be in like his late 20s, maybe early 30s in Goonies, I would think then,
yeah.
right? I mean, that was
Yeah.
like
And
86.
I feel like
or-
he was already balding at that point,
Yeah.
so this must have been a hairpiece for
maybe.
sure.
Yeah. I don't know.
Or
All
just
right.
that last gasp. It's got that real like this is the last year I can grow it like this look to
Sure.
it.
Oh my gosh, I think Donald Trump has had that look for like the last 40 years.
All right.
Oh,
was
I
that the
wanted
last-
to ask you.
Oh.
Yeah, and how old not how old, how tall do you think John Sally is?
Oh, the basketball hacker guy?
Yeah.
Fuck, I don't know. 6
I mean, because
6'6". I don't know. It's probably way more.
6'9".
6'11". He's
What?
almost 7 feet tall. Mm-hmm.
Holy cow. That'll get you in some
So that
movies, I
shot
guess.
wasn't even exaggerated. That probably was actually what Martin Lawrence looks like to him.
Yeah, I feel like Martin Lawrence is probably a little fella, isn't he? I feel like he's
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a
kind of
short
guy.
dude.
Yeah. All right, we want to move right
Yeah,
on.
because when they did Nothing to Lose, because Tim Robbins is really tall too, and then when they
Yeah.
did that movie, Martin Lawrence came up to barely came up to his sternum.
Yeah. Just staring at his belt buckle all day. Are you having technical difficulty? Or are you wondering what's going on upstairs? Nobody on the
I'm wondering
podcast
what's
can
going
see
on
what's
with
happening.
I'm wondering what's going on with my kid.
Okay. All right. Well, we're going to move right along to another game. We have another game for you, Keith. This game has its own theme song as well. And this one goes like this.
I think it's time we stop, children. What's that sound?
Do you hear what I hear?
What's that sound?
Do you hear what I hear?
What's that sound?
All right. It is time for us to play What's That Sound? That's where I take
All
a
right.
sound clip from this film and I play it for you. And you need to tell me what's happening on screen while this sound is happening. This one, this game has become incredibly difficult over Zoom. When we were all in the same room together, it was a lot easier. Everybody had headphones on and it was all, great. But we're going to give it a shot and see what happens. So this is the first sound. There's going to be two for this movie, and this is the first sound. And I'll play it multiple times if you need it replayed.
Okay.
Okay, that was it. It was a mess, but there was something going on in there. There's a couple of little context clues, some background
Can I hear
music.
it one more time?
For sure. Like I said, these are very tough, especially when it's so. Again, the only reason normally I pick 3, but for this movie I only picked 2 because most of it was just explosions or things breaking and stuff, and I couldn't really have a bunch of that, so I figured we'd just get these 2. So, I'm gonna go one more time.
I feel like I could be totally wrong.
Okay, just take a wild swing at it. We'll see.
I'm gonna leave this up to you guys for a second because
Okay.
I'm not sure what's going on upstairs.
All right.
So I'll be right back.
Sure. Okay, go do what you got to do. That's
her daughter's running a blender or something upstairs.
I'm gonna say it's when he shoots Max and she falls into the glass table.
Okay, that is not the case.
Oh,
that is not the case. Normally, what we would do is we'd bat it up for you, let you take a swing at it, and then give it to Mandy. And then she'd take a swing at it because she has not heard these clips also. And then if neither of you get it, it goes out to the listeners. So because it's just you and we haven't gotten it yet, I'm going to play it one more time clean for the listeners, and then they can either email or message us in and see if they can get it. Generally, we get a few usual suspects, speaking of the movie, who ring in and give us those correct answers. So we get some audience participation this time around.
All right.
Okay, so that was that clip. Does anything else jump out at you? You want to take another swing?
Man, I know. Now I can definitely hear that I was wrong the first time. But,
yeah, for sure. I'll tell you after we're done.
Okay. Yeah, I'm drawing a blank.
Sure. Okay, and then here is sound number 2. Oh, well, Mandy's back, maybe.
Sorry. Oh gosh, I'm so out of shape.
Did you want to take a swing at that first one?
No, because I mean it sounded like a bunch of car crashing. Yeah,
Sure.
like
all right. Well,
that type of thing.
Here's number 2. Okay, that was it. Just a bunch of stuff happening there. I'll play it one more time.
I think I got that one.
Okay.
Of course, I thought I had the first one. Is that Martin Lawrence when they're in the room with the dead guy and after they come into the mansion?
Yes, that's it. Yep.
All right,
they discovered the dead guy. Yeah,
He's about to throw up.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, he decides he's going to leave the room and go call 911.
Right. He's gonna go. Which that was another one where I was like, when Will Smith just starts picking the body up and picking paper up and stuff.
I know.
I get we're loose cannon cops and everything, but that's a crime scene. Come on.
For sure. Well, I mean, they already forced themselves into the room to begin with, and then on top of that, they're just no gloves. We don't need this. We'll just
sure.
Contaminating the shit out of some evidence.
Right. And they're moving the body around too, throwing his leg off onto the ground. Like, who cares? But like,
be a great sequel where all the bad guys get out of jail in a technicality because they thought they fucked with the crime scene in the first movie.
And then they start doing investigations and find out that all of their crime scenes were that way. So just everyone they've ever put in jail gets out, and it's
just like The Purge. There's just every criminal's out on the streets.
That's where the bad boys come from. They're coming after him. We never talked about Sanchez and Ruiz.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
I wanted to bring. Yeah.
I do have a small clip of those guys here. We'll just play it for a second, and then we'll talk about them here.
Where were y'all last night, man? Listen, why don't y'all just have your cousins bring the shit back? We can all get some sleep, all right?
We were gonna do that, but you know what happened? We came up with a problem. Your mama snorted up all the dope.
Oh, why didn't
all right, you two, get over there.
So stupid. Just your mama snorted up all the dope. But
yeah, that was another one of those like really badly written, like, here's the antagonistic other cops, and then like the minute they walk out and they're out on the steps, and it's like, hey, you know, we got to set aside our differences. Shit got real. And then like, where did they even end up?
I don't know what their function was in this whole movie. Yeah, I really.
Like they didn't like in the whole like the hangar blew up. Were they still in it?
I have no idea.
They didn't get killed on screen, did they? That I saw.
I don't think so. But this is the spinoff that we all needed. Really, the Ruiz and Sanchez show.
And actually, both of those actors like went on to do like some really good stuff.
Yeah.
So it's funny because they were just, again, I think it was just like the super shitty writing and character making in this movie.
I know we're getting pretty close to being wrapped up here, but I do have a couple of clips we haven't played yet. We talked about Francine, so I'm just going to play this part. This is Francine here.
There's Eve and my ex-boyfriend Eddie and this French guy. They took some really horrible pictures of me. And
I
they
mean,
said
if you're listening in and you haven't seen this
I'm
movie,
a
this is the type of acting that you're missing out on right here.
a lot of narcotics information, but I never gave them you or the girl.
Look, they got the girl.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think she did a bad job acting necessarily, but yeah. And actually, originally her character was supposed to be a dude, so I'm not sure how they would have worked that out. Yeah.
Oh, those
so
pictures would have been a lot more of a big deal in '95, probably.
Yeah, if it would have been with another guy,
Right,
but if it
yeah.
wouldn't,
But the guy was French, so makes sense. And did you want to hear Mike talk or get sad about being a rich kid? Because we haven't heard that yet. Here we go.
Yeah, sure.
I'm so sick of this bullshit. What, I'm supposed to apologize for my family leaving me money? All I ever wanted to be was a cop.
Yeah, I'm sad about
I
stuff.
take it to the max every day. I'm the first guy through the door, and I'm always the last guy to leave the crime scene. So you know what? Fuck you, and fuck them, and fuck everybody who got a problem with Mike Lowry. I love you, man. Fuck you, Mom.
Oh, refers to
But
himself.
And there again, that's just they're just troweling on backstory though. It's just such a bad. It's just like
None of
I
that
can't help
feeds
it if
the
I was
story.
born on the right side of the tracks.
Yeah, but like none of that feeds the storyline at all, other than like he's rich, so he has a nice apartment. I mean, are they just trying
it
to
explains
justify?
that location? And that's the only.
Yeah, I don't get it. I don't understand. But all right. So I mean, anything that we talked about or that we did not talk about? You said you had some grievances to air. What did we cover? Everything that you hated?
I think so. I mean, it was. I mean, it's just. It's not for me. It's just.
But you said that your wife likes this movie, right?
Yeah, she was like she was amazed that I hadn't seen it.
Now,
and
did
then she was laughing at my react because I'm the opposite of a poker face when I'm watching something I don't like.
Oh, for sure.
And it's a recurring thing in our marriage because she watches a lot of reality shows and stuff that just make my skin crawl. So I'll just be on the couch just sighing and making old man noises. I think sometimes she watches things to get that out of me more than she does for the actual which is the only reason I can think of for anyone to watch like My 600-Pound Life. I don't know what
My wife watches that. She watches those people who live in Alaska, like have a homesteading in Alaska. Like, what are you doing?
I love that. Life Below Zero. I watched the shit out of that
Naked
show.
and Afraid, or all of the survivors and all of the. I'm just done.
Intervention. She watches every intervention is exactly the same episode.
Hoarders. Yeah, we watched a lot of Hoarders just because she's got the remote and I'm in the room, so that's what we're doing. But yeah.
Yeah,
I get it.
And I make so many surly noises. And well, the only difference with us and Hoarders is because I have things like shelves full of VHS tapes. So every time she watches Hoarders and they cut to anything that looks like something I own, I get a lot of like, huh?
Nice. All right. Mandy, anything that we didn't hit on this movie that you needed to talk to us about?
No, I don't think so.
Keith, would you watch this movie again?
Oh. You know, I kind of want to watch Bad Boys 2 now, honestly.
Okay.
Just to see how,
where they went.
It's kind of like watching, like when you. I don't know I can't think of another example of like a really low budget first movie and then like the sequel is just out the door big but like, I'd like to see, when like, because they went into Bad Boys 2 with way more money and everybody knows who they are and all that stuff and they're bigger stars. So I kind of would want to watch it from an academic, like, I don't think I would watch it and get excited about car chases.
It's really good, and spoiler alert, Martin Lawrence accidentally takes ecstasy, and it's fantastic. So I would highly recommend that.
That's your 10-word synopsis.
Yeah.
It's really good, and Martin Lawrence takes ecstasy. Go watch
By
it.
accident. It's fantastic. It's so good.
And I kind of want to watch. I feel like I need to watch it because actually one of my favorite comedies probably of the last 20 years is Hot Fuzz.
Okay.
With Simon Pegg, and they the whole thing where what's his name is like so into the action movies and dude can't stand it, and then they get drunk and watch them, and then they start acting out all the cliches and stuff, and shit just got real.
I love those guys. They're so amazing.
Yeah, this has got to be.
I feel like just for their sakes, and just for the fact that for as many times as I've watched Hot Fuzz, I've probably absorbed about half of Bad Boys 2 just by osmosis.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That was right on the edge of that whole like I'm too old for this shit type of cliche cop movies.
Right.
So yeah, love it. Okay, what else would be? I guess that's pretty much it. I mean, Mandy, did you say you would watch this again? I don't know if we.
Oh yeah. And now that this podcast is over, I'm for sure watching 2, and then I'll probably rent 3 just because. So.
Yeah, I have no reason to watch this movie again. I'm glad I rewatched it for this, but it's out the door for me. I don't need it anymore in my life.
Trading that VHS tape in
for sure. We just did a whole last year's garage sale. We did like a whole liquidation of all of our VHS tapes and a lot of our DVDs. We got rid of a ton, more so than I thought. There were people out there buying DVDs like crazy. We were selling them for, I want to say like $3 a piece or something, and we sold a shit ton of DVDs.
Man,
that's good to know because I'm getting ready for a garage sale as soon as we're allowed to, sell our contaminated shit to other people.
Right, that's what I'm going to be so afraid to go to Goodwill afterward because I'm like, I don't know where this shit's been.
I know,
but I want to go so bad. We live just down the street from a Goodwill, and for a while there was a mountain growing outside of it where people were just dropping shit off. They had to put out like tape, like construction zone tape, and like just please stop leaving your shit here, because they're like nobody works, and we're going to literally throw it in a dumpster. Like that's where it goes.
Right. It's going to get rained on and ruined. And
right.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Man,
that's my biggest hope for when things open back up is that I get to be like first in line at the Goodwill. So I'll just bring in some gloves. See what happens.
I got to a point. I started looking around when I actually got some VHS tapes within like the last 6 months off of people on Facebook Marketplace that were just literally like, come take them from my house and you can have them.
Nice.
And like I started looking to see like if I could buy some from people, and they were so cheap that finally I just started finding people that were like, look, I've got 100 VHS tapes if you'll come get them.
You just get them away, get them out of my house.
Like and one lady I actually she still had them on a shelf in her living room above the TV.
Nice.
And I had to like go, and she had to go get a box, and I'm standing in this stranger's living room feeling really awkward, and there's like an inch of dust on all of them and stuff. But
now, are you looking for anything in particular, or are you just trying to widen out the selection?
I mean, I had this idea for either a podcast or some kind of project, or just like just to fill in some gaps in my own knowledge, to sit and watch a bunch of these movies and watch them on, because there's something about watching them on VHS that I kind of like. It's for like that whole, it's hard to fast forward through stuff, and there's
you got to try harder.
Weirdness.
Yeah.
And you've got the previews at the beginning and all that are all just super dated.
Yeah, I love it. And, that's what I love most.
That announcer guy who's probably dead now.
Yeah. I love that most about watching those movies that you would tape off of television or whatever.
Right.
I would sometimes I'll find those at garage sales and buy those anyway, just the VHS tapes. Not anymore because I don't have a VCR, but when I did, just to see what the commercials were from back in the early 90s, late 90s or whatever. They're great. I love watching especially local ads on TV back then. It's ridiculous. Holy shit, what's going on?
I had a couple
your ceiling's falling in.
Tapes. There were some people on eBay back in the early days of eBay selling like bootleg VHS recordings of TV shows before you could buy like whole seasons of them on DVD and stuff.
Sure.
And I remember one of my favorite shows ever was Mr. Show, Bob Odenkirk and David Cross's old sketch show on HBO. And I paid like $40 to this guy for these just homemade tapes. And they were so badly edited. Like there's just like, you'd get like half the credits in the first one. And then like there was some other series that I ended up buying like a couple tapes of like bootleg, and they're like half the commercial, and then it would cut off and go to the next next segment or whatever. But yeah, that was a whole like cottage industry back in the wild days of eBay before you could just buy seasons of stuff, which now you don't need because they're all streaming.
It's all there, yeah. All right, Keith, we got about 2 minutes to wrap things up. So do you have any plugs or anything you want to point people at during this time of COVID, or just something that you're enjoying in the world? If you don't have anything that
if you want to go, actually, one of the things I'm working on some writing projects. I do have an album. My most recent album, The Goldfish, is out and it's up for streaming on like all the streaming services.
Okay.
I have a new album coming out that I luckily got recorded before all this happened. That'll be out this summer, and that's called Big Fat Dreamboat. And then what I'm actually really excited, just yesterday, I started a project 3 years ago where I write these little 100-word stories every day. And it's like just a writing exercise. They have to be exactly 100 words, self-contained short fiction. And on yesterday, I put up my 1,000th story.
Okay.
Wow.
So those are all at my website at keithbergman.com. And there's 1,000 micro stories, and you can just like randomly scroll through and read them, and it's quite a rabbit hole to go down.
For sure, yeah. And so those stories they're unrelated to each other at all. Like they're separate individual stories, right?
I think there's 2 or 3 total that might be like where something happens, and then the next day I wrote another 100 words about the same person or something.
Okay.
But for the most part, they're all very just self-contained little, and I try to make them like stories with a beginning, middle, and end. I mean, sometimes they're just like a chunk of dialogue, obviously from a character that you have to kind of get the context guessed, whatever. But it's a great writing exercise because on my best days I do it first thing in the morning, and then it just kind of gets me in that frame of mind to work through the day. And I've got an entire manuscript of a novel that came out of one of them just from an idea I got for one day. So it's there's literally 100,000 words of short stories.
And that's at keithbergman.com.
If anybody wants to check those out.
keithbergman.com. All right, we are so late for time. It's gonna cut us off here in just a second. We always end this by playing a clip because we have no idea how to end it otherwise. So here's that last clip. I don't even know what this is.
Hi, Mr. Lowry. I'm keeping your sweet little friend for 4 hours until I make my deal.
All right, good enough. That's it. There's 5 at the end. All right, thank you so much, Keith.